One of the new requirements for the RPS project tracker is to be able to schedule tasks. Our current version of the app has a simple task list that is similar in functionality to a to-do list. But in this chapter, we're expanding the simple task list to include the Kendo UI for Angular Scheduler component to perform operations on the backlog item tasks. This is accomplished through a calendar type of interface. All right, let's add the scheduler to our details page. Let's review where the scheduler component is going to go. I'm looking at the completed application here. Let's go to the backlog page and then click on one of these items to get into the details. You'll see that we have a tab strip here like we had before, but there's a new tab called Schedule. This is the home of the Kendo UI Scheduler component. The scheduler will display the same data that we have under tasks, but instead of showing all these tasks as a list, like they are on the task screen, the scheduler will use the dates and times associated with each task to place them on the calendar view. Now, here's the current app that we're working on. As you can see, the details page does not have a schedule tab, so your first task as an exercise is to add this tab and install the scheduler component. Let's take a look at some of the code here because there is some boilerplate code already written for you that you should take a look at. Under Source, App, Modules, Backlog, Pages, Detail, you'll find the detail page component. This is where your Kendo tab strip lives. By the way, if you missed the chapter where we set this up, you can go back and review it. Currently, there are 3 tabs, and you'll add one more for the scheduler. This new tab will house a component which is already set up for you as far as the code goes. Let's take a look at that. It's under Components, Detail, Item, Task, Schedule. The HTML template doesn't have much right now. This is something we'll fill out later. However, you will utilize some of the pre-written code that's already included. You'll see that this component references the Progress Kendo Angular Scheduler package, which we haven't installed yet. So that's one of your tasks. Here we're pulling in the tasks, just like we did in the tasks component. And whenever tasks change, that change will be detected. For example, if a new task is added or deleted, the task subscription will be updated. And for every task, we're going to create a scheduler event. A scheduler event is an object that the Kendo UI Scheduler uses to display events. It includes the ID, title, start and end times, and whether it's an all-day event. None of our events are all-day events, so I've hard-coded that to false. But it's there if you need it. The scheduler also supports recurring events, but we're not using those in this example either, but it's good to know that it's available if you need it. So essentially here we're mapping our tasks over to scheduler events, and the scheduler component will use these events as its data source. So take a look at this code to prepare for your implementation. Pay attention to the onSave handler as well, which is triggered whenever there's a change to any event in the scheduler, or if a new event is created. This handler receives a save event, converts it to a new task if the task doesn't already exist, or updates an existing task if a task does exist, and then it sends the data back to the server. You'll find the documentation about the scheduler in the documentation under Scheduler. It's in its own component package. Under installation and getting started, you'll find the Angular CLI command to install the scheduler. That's where you'll want to start. Go ahead and try this out on your own. I hope you tried the previous exercise. I'll be going through this rather quickly because I don't want to waste anyone's time with repetitive tasks. Many of these tasks are similar to what we've already done in the previous chapters. And I'll be pasting some boilerplate code here in the interest of time. Remember, you can always reference the completed application for the code or pause the video if you're following along and copying the code from here. Let's move on. We're going to kick things off with the installation. So I'll copy this command to install the Kendo Angular Scheduler package. First, I'll terminate my running process, as we've done before, and paste the command to install the package. Once that's done, I'll run ngserve again to restart the server. Let's take a quick look at package.json, and you'll see the scheduler component is listed there. We're good to go, and now our PT item task scheduler component won't complain about the package not being installed. Next, I'll want to add the schedule tab. So let's head over to the detail page component, and to add the new tab, I'll just copy the existing tasks tab and paste it. Let's rename this to schedule, and I'll also update the is tab selected parameter to schedule. However, this won't work just yet. We need to take a few more steps to get it fully functional. The component that will be hosted in this tab is the PT item task schedule component. So let's rename this and reference it appropriately. After doing that, you'll notice that running the app might throw an error. It'll say something like, argument of type schedule is not assignable to a parameter of type detail screen type. And this is because the app recognizes that schedule isn't one of our predefined detail screen types. Let's fix that. We can go to the detailed page component code and locate the isTab selected handler. You'll see that it's trying to assign the screen, but schedule isn't recognized. By pressing F12, you can see the existing types like form, tasks, and chitchat. We'll just add schedule to this list of types to fix the issue. Almost. Next, we need to register the PT item task scheduler component in the detail page component so it's aware of the new component. Make sure it's included in the imports array and properly imported. Now, if you revisit the app, you'll see the new schedule tab displayed next to the other tabs. So this tab is ready. In the next lesson, we'll add the scheduler component and set up some views for it. You can take this opportunity to get ahead and try this out if you haven't already done so. Hopefully you've had a chance to try the scheduler out for yourself. If not, that's okay. We'll do it right now. All we need to do is put the Kendo scheduler on the page, and we need to bind its data. So this is the Kendo scheduler binding attribute. We're binding this to scheduler events. This is already implemented in the code, and you can find it in the PT item task schedule component right over here. The type is scheduler event array, and scheduler event is coming from Progress Kendo Angular Scheduler package. We also do need to import our Kendo scheduler utility array so that our component works, and we need to add the imports to our component. It's going to be an array with that Kendo scheduler utility array inside of it. So before we get any scheduler events in there, we need to convert the incoming tasks to the scheduler event types, and we do that right here in the ngOnInit method. So we've bound that. However, this won't show anything just yet. Let me show you what this results in. And nothing. In fact, there is an error if you take a look at the console, and that's because the scheduler requires you to declare at least one view. It doesn't pick one by default. So let's define a view. And a view is just a display of your events. You can have a day view, a week view, a month view, a timeline view, and an agenda view. Let's start off with one that looks like a calendar the most, and that's the month view. Let's drop in a Kendo scheduler month view component inside here. And just by doing that and saving it, we're automatically going to have a month view with our events already populated in here. So that's quite simple, right? You didn't do much work, yet you have this fully functional calendar component here. You can go directly to today, or you can skip to different months. And these are actually our tasks. If we take a look at the task list here, you'll see that the same list of names are actually in our scheduler. What about the other views? Let's take a look at those. I'm going to drop in another view here just by pasting it in here. And this is the day view. And I'm binding the start time to the start time property. Let's take a look at that. Here's our start time property, and I've hard-coded it in here, but you can calculate it based on whatever you need. So by default, the day view will start at midnight, but you can set the start time to be sometime later, like the workday. I'm going to save this. And here's our day view. You see that the start time is 7 a.m. And this particular day doesn't have any events. Let's take a look at the month. And here's one. And you can switch between the day view and the month view right here on the right side. Same thing with the week view. I'm going to paste the week view in here using the same start time. And I'm also going to paste in the timeline view and the agenda view. Let's take a look at all these. So here's our day. We've seen that. The week view is pretty self-explanatory. It shows the entire week, and we can go forward or backwards by weeks. The timeline view displays in a similar way to a day view, but horizontally. And there's an agenda view, which gives you a nice overview of the events that are actually on the calendar. So you don't have to search through your month views or day views or week views. You can just look at the agenda and quickly have a glance of when each event starts and ends. How does the scheduler component know what date to display initially? Let's say you reload the page and the component gets reloaded and you're on the day view. It's showing today by default, but I can actually bind the selected date. Right on the Kendo scheduler itself, I can bind the selected date property to display date. Let's take a look at that. So display date is by default today. However, I update the display date once I figure out the minimum date based on all the events. So let's take a look at that. Okay, and you can see that it reloaded. That means this is the earliest event that it found from the list of tasks. In the next lesson, let's make the scheduler more interactive. We're going to be able to save events and make it editable. This scheduler is already pretty useful because we're able to see all our tasks on a timeline, and we get a glimpse of what task needs to be done first and last and so on, which is something that just the plain task list didn't show us. But it would be nice to be able to interact with this calendar view as well, and the scheduler component supports that. Let's go to the code, and in the HTML, I'm going to add the editable attribute to our Kendo scheduler. I'm going to set that to true. And when I do that, our scheduler becomes editable, and I can even hover over each item. You'll see a little X on the side here that allows me to delete each item. However, this won't work just the way I have it set up quite yet. We need to add one more binding, and this is not the most straightforward binding that I've seen, but this will do the job. The binding is called Kendo Scheduler Reactive Editing, which I'm going to bind to a function that I've already created, and that's the create form group function. Let's take a look at that. There's our create form group function, and the result of this is the Angular form group. So this uses the form builder, which is Angular's form builder, to create the form, and we bind this function in the constructor of our component, like this. All this code is available on the documentation site. So now, if I tap on one of the items, it brings up a generated form that I can edit. So let's say I edited this item, I can tap on save. However, save is not implemented yet, so that actually won't save to my tasks. It does save locally in the scheduler, it just doesn't save in the API because we didn't specify a save handler yet. You can also click on an empty space, and this will bring up a new event form, which you can also fill out. And there's our task 1. Let's do something about the saving, shall we? I'm going to head back to our HTML, and I'm going to bind the save event to the onSave handler. This handler is already implemented. Right down here, it determines whether this is a new event or an updated event, and then I just call the API from there. Let's take a look. I'm going to look at the month view. Let's create one on the 16th. So I'm going to double click there. I'm going to call it new task on 16th. And you can see that the start and end times are automatically set. I'm going to uncheck this all day event, change this date to the 16th. And let's see, it has a nice little calendar picker and a time picker. So I'm going to set this to 12 p.m. and the end will be 2 p.m. I'm not going to do a recurrence, but you could if you wanted to right here. There's your option. And you can add a description too. I'm just going to go ahead and save this. And if we look at the month view, you'll see that there's our new task on 16th. Back on the tasks tab, you can see our task listed here. If I delete it from the task list and go back to my month view on the scheduler, you can see that it's gone. Editing works in a similar way. Let's take a look at that one. I'm going to append AZ to the title and just go ahead and save this. And let's take a look at our tasks. And there's our updated task. If I refresh the page, we still get the updates in here. So that's the scheduler component.